Happy New Year to everybody. Here we go again and start the second half of the season. It's a good time, not only for the players, I think, but the coaches too. As the players come back, there's usually a little bit of excitement from the standpoint that they enjoy being around Madison, certainly campus, and having to play hockey without having to go to school. So you get a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of that, and the players seem to really thrive off it. So energy levels high, and look forward to the challenges. Going down to Columbus and playing a couple of games, and then the following weekend up in Minneapolis. So start the second half, and then looking forward to it.
Take questions. Todd?
From your experience, Mark, what's the biggest challenge in getting going after 3-4 weeks off, and especially when you're going on the road and playing a really good team?
Well, I think as you well know, you can practice hard and you can practice well, but it doesn't duplicate what a game's going to bring to you. I think the challenge this weekend is, the dimensions of Ohio State's rink is much different than ours, and things are going to happen quick and fast. They played last weekend a couple games, so you try to get the information to the players and understand what's coming at them, but, they'll get tested that first 8, 10, 12 minutes on some of the things we've talked about in practice. But like I say, the energy level's high and the excitement's there, so it should be fun to watch.
Brian?
Mentioned Ohio State played a couple of games against the Minnesota Whitecaps, a professional team. At some point, would you like to play a team like that maybe during the Christmas break so that you can prepare for the games that really matter when the second half starts?
I think any time, prior to the season starting in September, if you can get an exhibition game, and then that's good. And certainly during the Christmas break, it would be beneficial. The one thing with the Whitecaps is if you do play them, it counts a game against you. It's not actually an exhibition game. So, when they formed the professional part of it, that became part of the equation. So that's 2 games that Ohio State used up with their 34. So if your schedule only has 32 or 33 games, and it's an opportunity to play that. But, with the men playing the U.S. development team, it's better to play a game like that than it is to have an open weekend, especially when you start a new half.
You mentioned OSU's ice rink. How do you prepare for the pinball that gets played in there? I mean, that's a small ice to an extreme, and a lot of weird bounces, I think.
Yeah, and so you try to practice some things that'll prepare your team, but it's going to be those first 3 or 4 shifts for each group to go out there to get a feel of it, to get the feel of the pace of the game, and get an understanding what the rink dimensions and what situations are going to be brought. But I think we'll be ready for the challenge. I know last year we went down there, we had 2 tight games, and so hopefully we get the first couple of shifts out of the way, and then in most games, if you take care of the puck and your power play is pretty good and your penalty kill is pretty good, you have a pretty good chance of winning hockey games or at least being in it. So those are the things we'll be looking for, is to manage the puck, especially when we go down there.
How would you evaluate your first half of the season, Mark?
It was good for a lot of different reasons. We had some obstacles and some challenges. We played a good chunk of games at home. It gives our younger players an opportunity to get their feet wet. But overall, there were a lot of good things that we take away from them. The tough part is your break for a month or 5 weeks, and that momentum that you had, especially in our last couple of weekends, is forgot about. And so now you have to start it new. But I think the nice thing about it is, the veteran players, the players that have been around, understand the process. We've talked about, it happens quickly now. There's only 7 weeks. You got 14 games, 8 of them on the road, 6 are at home. And so, the first 2 weekends coming out of the chute here are going to be very important.
You've got 2 freshman forwards who already have double digits in goals. Was that something that you and your staff expected? I think the players expected to produce, but did you look at it that way and say, boy, if Britta does this or Sophia does this, or do you kind of stay away from those things, Mark?
I generally, I'm not a big stat guy, and so I get more into, how are they playing, per shift and per period and per game. And I've seen certainly growth there. And, Britta Curl, who started, on our fourth line at the beginning of the year, is now playing, with Abby and Shirley and doing really well. And the more they've played together, the better they've gotten. They sort of have a chemistry, understand the game real well, and complement each other's play. And so putting numbers on them, hopefully they're going to get better and those numbers increase as we go down the stretch here, because we're going to certainly need them.
May seem a little early to think about standings and championships, regular season championships, those kind of things. But these 2 weeks really seem like, with you playing on the road against teams that you're going to be right in there with at the end of the season, maybe kind of deciding kind of games. Does that come up at all with when you talk to your players?
I think, certainly this first weekend is just to try to continue some of the habits that we had going in the first half, try to come out of the gate real quick here and establish some things. Obviously, Ohio State's, a top 10 team. They've had success. They play well in their building. And as you mentioned, depending on what happens this weekend and next weekend, if you're successful, it puts you in a real good position. If you're not, then you might be climbing the ladder a little bit. So I think in the back of the player's mind, they understand the magnitude, but more importantly is, cliche of one at a time, and that's what you got to do. So we got to focus our attention on Friday night and get ourselves up to game speed as quickly as we can.
Brian?
Mark, the stats would indicate you're a good defensive team, but since you're not a stats guy, how would you evaluate your team's defensive play?
Well, I think a lot of coaches, you don't like to give up goals, and you look for reasons why goals are scored against you. But I think, as you know, as well as anybody, if you're going to be good at the end, you have to be able to defend and keep the puck out of your net and give yourself an opportunity to have success with that. And so, we'll spend time today in practice, talking about the little things within our own end, and more importantly, as we get into tomorrow and Thursday, is try to play the right way, and that's what we'll be looking for Friday night.